Hello everyone, I'm Nitsuhone, and it is Friday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. Last year, during the month of October, all 4 of my MTG Top 10s for the month were Halloween-inspired, and we're doing the same this year. Halloween's my favorite holiday. I basically celebrate it all month long, and this month's MTG Top 10s are a part of that. And we're starting with a pretty obvious one. Werewolves. Werewolves are, of course, common creatures in gothic horror, and still appear in our television, movies, and magic cards, of course, today. Werewolves are one of the most flavorful tribes in all of Magic, since all of them, at least those printed in the last 10 years or so, are double-faced cards, enabling the creature to transform from its more human state to its more wolf-like state. All of the werewolves on this list live on the plane of Innistrad too, the only plane we've been to that seems to have a large number of these creatures running around. Before we get to the list, a quick reminder on how I score these. Cards receive points depending on how many Grand Prix or Pro Tour Top 8s they've received, with a Pro Tour Top 8 worth twice as much as a Grand Prix Top 8. I count Legacy and Vintage Championship events as Pro Tour Top 8s as well, so that those formats can be represented in the scores of cards. Now let's get started. At number 10, we have a card that isn't actually a werewolf as far as Magic's rules go. She's a planeswalker, but flavor-wise, she is obviously a werewolf, and that's Arlinn Kord. Only 9 creatures with the actual werewolf creature type have 1 or more points, so Arlinn gets to make the list. Arlinn was super hyped when she was spoiled, with people thinking she would be a powerful card in Constructed, and it makes sense. She has the ability to make creature tokens and the ability to kill other creatures. 2 things that usually help out a Planeswalker a lot, but she never quite lived up to the hype. Arlinn Kord only managed 1 Grand Prix Top 8 the whole time she was in Standard, in a pretty unique deck that finished in second place at Grand Prix San Jose. It was just a Planeswalker deck, more or less. It seems unlikely she ever sees play in non-rotating formats, given her subpar performance in Standard, but maybe she'll surprise us. At number 9, we have another rare werewolf that didn't do a ton in Standard. On the face of it, Wolf-Bitten Captive is a 1-mana 1/1 with upside. Being able to pump itself and transform into a 2/2 that can pump itself even more seems nice. But the mana investment both sides of this card ask for isn't going to be amazing in an aggro deck, since you'd rather just be playing creatures on curve than using these abilities. Still, this werewolf did manage 1 Grand Prix Top 8 when it was in Standard at Grand Prix Quebec City in 2013, where it was in a Naya aggro deck. While Naya was a thing in that format, most versions of the deck to put up good numbers didn't run the Captive, so it is at a lowly 1 point. If we ever get werewolves again, you can bet Wolf-Bitten Captive will get booted off this list. At number 8, we have Reckless Waif. Reckless Waif is basically a really bad Delver of Secrets. It is a 1-mana 1/1 that transforms into a 3/2, but that's sort of where the similarities end. It doesn't have flying, and it can be transformed back. Still, those stats are good enough that Reckless Waif saw play in red deck wins during its time in Standard. It had a ton of close finishes, but in the end only managed 2 Grand Prix Top 8s in the format. Like the ones that came before, the Waif is going to struggle to hold on to its spot if more werewolves are printed. At number 7 is Daybreak Ranger. On the front, the Ranger is capable of taking down problem flyers. Daybreak Ranger was capable of killing Insectile Aberration, and that alone made it a card people were willing to play in green when it was in Standard. The Ranger also transformed into the very strong Nightfall Predator, who, for the very low cost of 1 red mana, can fight creatures on the table. 4 is enough to take down a lot of creatures and keep the Predator alive. The Ranger put up top 8s in Nyapod and Red-Green Aggro, though it never managed one at a Pro Tour, despite being played at a pretty high rate at Pro Tour Avacyn Restored. At number 6 is Scorned Villager. This is yet another werewolf that fits well into aggressive decks. On the front, it may not have the best stats, but it helps you ramp into your 4-drop on turn 3, and after it transforms, it brings vigilance and better stats to the table while also being capable of ramping you even higher. Unlike most of the werewolves on this list, Scorned Villager didn't actually see play in Standard, but it managed to take 3 of the top 8 slots at the Innistrad block Constructed Pro Tour in 2012, with all 3 of them coming in Naya decks. The Villager was great in that format, but it didn't make it into Standard or any other formats. At number 5, it's Village Messenger. Sort of similar to Reckless Waif from the original Innistrad block, Village Messenger was a 1-mana 1/1 with some serious upside. It transforms into a 2/2 with Menace, and it wasn't too hard to have it transform right away if you played it on turn 1. Like the Waif, Village Messenger saw play in red deck win style decks. The Messenger actually went most of the time it was in Standard without seeing any play though, but with the printing of Ramunap Ruins and Amonkhet, people wanted to jam as many aggressive red creatures into their decks as they could, so they could do a bunch of damage to their opponents early and finish them off with the powerful Desert, and Village Messenger ended up being a part of that deck in its closing months in the format, managing to put up 3 Pro Tour Top 8s and 1 Grand Prix Top 8 before it rotated out of Standard. At number 4, we have Mayor of Avabruck, one of the few cards that is a lord for multiple creature types. Mayor of Avabruck pumped all your humans while he was in human form and pumped all of your wolves and werewolves while in his werewolf form. He also gave you a free 2/2 wolf every turn, which was actually a 3/3 as long as the alpha was in play. Sadly, Werewolves was never really a tier 1 deck in either block or Standard, But the mayor found his way into green-white human decks where the fact that he was a lord on one side and a must-kill finisher on the other side was pretty amazing. The mayor managed a top 8 in a green-white aggro deck at the Block Constructed Pro Tour and put up 4 Grand Prix top 8s in green-white human decks in Standard. Just recently, the mayor has actually returned to relevance as a Bant Humans deck managed to put up a Grand Prix top 8 in Modern earlier this year at Grand Prix Birmingham. This is a pretty sweet deck because it's an aggro deck, but it also runs the combo kill of Retreat to Coralhelm and Knight of the Reliquary. And all the creatures in the deck happen to be humans, so the mayor does a good job of helping them out. It remains to be seen if this deck can continue to be relevant in Modern. I certainly hope it can, as it is one of the more unique decks around. At number 3, we have Lambholt Pacifist, a 2-mana 3-3 with a really interesting design. It's sort of a 2-mana 3-3 with downside since it can't attack unless you have a big enough creature, but it also has the upside of just transforming into a 4-4 if the usual Werewolf clause happens. This was a well-costed aggressive creature, and as a result, it saw a ton of play when it was in Standard. When it first came into Standard, this meant Selesnya tokens, but later it emerged as one of the core creatures in Bant Company decks, since it provided a well-costed body that could also be a hit for Collected Company. While Collected Company is a thing in Modern, Lambholt Pacifist doesn't see any play in those decks, as there are just better options in the format, and it doesn't seem like a good candidate to see play in non-rotating formats going forward. At number 2, we have another mainstay in Bant Company, and man is it a powerful uncommon. A 2-mana 2-2 who can be a pretty nice mana sink, sort of doing a mini Collected Company effect all on its own with its activated ability. It was a good fit in the deck simply because it was a 2-2 with upside that Collected Company could put into play. But that activated ability brings some additional synergy to a deck that is already pretty interested in toolboxy creatures. When it transforms, it only gets a little bigger, but it also decreases the cost of all your creature spells. Both sides of this are appealing in aggressive decks. It saw play almost exclusively in Collected Company decks in Standard, though it saw a bit of play in Cryptolith Right decks as well. Unlike Lambholt Pacifist, though, Duskwatch Recruiter is seeing play in modern Collected Company decks, the creature toolbox version especially, which also runs Court of Calling in addition to Collected Company. It is likely to continue to see play there and pull further away from his old friend Lambholt Pacifist, and what makes the Recruiter better is the fact that even if you don't hit Collected Company, you can toolbox creatures into play using the Duskwatch Recruiter's ability. Well, not into play, but you can get them from the top of your library and put them into your hand. And at number 1, it's kind of an obvious number 1. This one's not going to surprise anybody, but it's Huntmaster of the Fells, which is just an incredibly good card. Even just the front half of the card, 4 mana for 2 2/2s and 2 life would probably have been good enough to see some play, but he's a werewolf, so he transforms if people don't cast spells, as they all do, and when he does, he gets to shock a creature and a player. Then when he transforms back, he gives you the wolf and life again. He just goes back and forth between doing good stuff for you, and generally if your opponent plays Huntmaster and you can't kill it, you're going to lose the game. He was one of the best creatures in all of Innistrad Block, as evidenced by the fact that it managed 4 Pro Tour top 8s at the Innistrad Block Constructed Pro Tour, and he was also just one of the best creatures in all of Standard, appearing in decks like Green-Red Aggro, Kessig Titan, and Nyapod. He has also been good enough for Modern, where he's primarily appeared in Jund decks with a Grand Prix top 8 in the format earlier in 2017, but also was a sideboard card in Splinter Twin before that deck got banned. He will continue to see play in Modern, so it is likely he adds to his score, and it's hard to imagine that any werewolf will ever be printed that can overtake the Huntmaster. Well, that does it for this week's MTG Top 10. Next week, I'll be back with another Halloween-inspired list. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video so others can enjoy it too. My MTG Top 10s are sponsored by 5colorcombo.com, a great website for both Magic content and Magic accessories. You can use my discount code NEETZAHONE5 for a 5% discount in their store. Right now, 5colorcombo.com is also running a Kickstarter campaign to fund a card game that has already gotten great reviews called Enfutown Bumpers. Go to enfutownbumpers.com to contribute and also get some sweet perks. You can also find a link to the Kickstarter campaign in the description below. Thanks for watching.